Join me as I dive into the unknown and explore what really happens when we die. I'm going to challenge myself to uncover the mysteries and theories surrounding this ultimate question. Death is a universal experience that we'll all face at some point in our lives, and yet it's a topic that's often shrouded in mystery and uncertainty. From a very young age, we're forced to confront the reality of death, whether it's through the loss of a loved one, a pet, or even a fictional character in a book or movie. And yet, despite its inevitability, death remains one of the biggest mysteries of human existence. The challenge of understanding death is a complex one, and it's a puzzle that's been debated by scientists, philosophers, and spiritual leaders for centuries. Each of these perspectives offers a unique lens through which to view death, and yet, they often seem to contradict one another. On one hand, science tells us that death is a biological certainty, a natural process that marks the end of our physical existence. And yet, many people believe that there's more to death than just the shutdown of our bodily functions. They believe that there's an afterlife, a realm where our souls or consciousness continue to exist in some form. Philosophers, on the other hand, have long grappled with the concept of death as a means of understanding the human experience. Some have argued that death gives life its meaning, that it's the knowledge of our own mortality that drives us to make the most of the time we have. Others have seen death as a liberation, a release from the burdens of the physical world. And then there are those who view death as a transition, a doorway to a new realm of existence. Spiritually, death is often seen as a transformation, a moment when the soul leaves the body and moves on to the next stage of its journey. In many cultures, death is celebrated as a rite of passage, a moment of great significance and beauty. And yet, despite these varying perspectives, death remains a deeply personal and subjective experience, one that each of us must ultimately face alone. Reincarnation is one of the most ancient and widespread beliefs about the afterlife. The idea that our souls are reborn into new bodies, carrying with us the memories and experiences of past lives, is a compelling one. It raises all sorts of questions about the nature of identity and consciousness, and whether it's possible to truly know ourselves. And yet, for many people, the idea of reincarnation is more than just a philosophical concept, it's a deeply held belief that gives meaning and purpose to their lives. Heaven and hell are two of the most familiar concepts in the Western imagination, and yet, they're often seen as simplistic or even childish by those who've given the matter some thought. And yet, the idea of a realm of eternal reward or punishment taps into something deep within us, a desire for justice and fairness in the face of an often cruel and capricious world. The scientific community, on the other hand, has its own take on the afterlife, one that's rooted in the mysteries of consciousness and the human brain. According to many scientists, consciousness is an emergent property of the brain, a byproduct of its incredible complexity and sophistication. When we die, our consciousness ceases to exist, and yet, some researchers believe that it may be possible to upload our minds into a virtual reality, or even to preserve them in some way. It's a fascinating idea, one that raises all sorts of questions about the nature of identity and selfhood. The ancient Greek philosopher, Plato, believed that the soul was immortal, and that its journey didn't end with the death of the body. Instead, he saw death as a transition, a moment when the soul was free to continue its journey, unencumbered by the burdens of the physical world. It's a beautiful idea, one that speaks to our deep-seated desire for transcendence and connection to something greater than ourselves. Many indigenous cultures around the world believe in a concept called ancestor worship, where the spirits of the dead are seen as guides and protectors of the living. It's a powerful idea, one that recognizes the debt we owe to those who've come before us and the importance of honoring their memories. And then there's the mystic, Emanuel Swedenborg, who believed that the afterlife was a realm of spiritual evolution, where the soul continued to grow and develop long after the death of the body. In the end, death remains one of the greatest mysteries of human existence, a puzzle that we'll never fully understand. And yet, that's what makes it so fascinating, so worthy of exploration and contemplation. Despite the many theories and beliefs that surround it, death remains a deeply personal and subjective experience, one that each of us must ultimately face alone. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If you have any thoughts on what you believe happens after we die, please share them with me in the comments below. And if you're interested in exploring more of the mysteries and theories surrounding death, be sure to check out my next video on this topic.